Did you know that Australia is currently sitting on the edge of one of the biggest economic collapses it's seen in decades? In fact, some experts are predicting that 2025 could be the year it all unravels. And the worst part? You might already be at risk, even if you're not aware of it. Picture this. Australian homes are becoming unaffordable, unemployment rates are creeping up, and inflation is rising faster than most people's paychecks. And that's just the beginning. Experts are warning that multiple crises, housing, debt, political instability, and even climate change, are all set to collide, and the impact could shake the very foundation of the country's economy. What does this mean for you? It could mean higher bills, fewer job opportunities, and skyrocketing costs that eat away at your savings. But there's more. What if this isn't just a future issue, but something that could happen sooner than you think? In today's video, we're diving into 10 shocking reasons why Australia could face its worst economic crisis in 2025, and most importantly, whether you're prepared. So, stay tuned as we unravel the truth behind the headlines and give you the critical information you need to protect yourself. This isn't just speculation. This is real, and the clock is ticking. Are you at risk? Let's find out. Number 1. The global economic slowdown. One of the biggest threats to Australia's economy in 2025 is the global economic slowdown. It's not just Australia facing these struggles, almost every country is feeling the pressure. And when the world's biggest economies hit a rough patch, Australia often follows suit. For years, Australia has relied heavily on international trade, especially with countries like China. But recently, the demand for Australian exports like coal, iron ore, and natural gas has begun to decline. China, one of our largest trading partners, is experiencing its own economic difficulties, with slower growth and reduced industrial activity. This means less demand for our raw materials, which directly affects the country's revenue and jobs tied to these industries. But it doesn't stop there. The global supply chains that Australia depends on are also facing disruptions, thanks to economic struggles in key regions like Europe, the US, and Asia. Shipping delays, higher transportation costs, and trade barriers are making it harder for Australian businesses to get the goods they need. The longer this continues, the more it puts pressure on local industries and raises costs of living here at home. Additionally, global inflation is becoming a major issue. With prices rising worldwide, Australia faces a tougher challenge to keep things affordable for consumers. As global prices for food, energy, and goods continue to climb, it's expected that these costs will trickle down to everyday Australians. This means higher bills, less disposable income, and a general strain on the economy. In short, Australia is not isolated. Its economic fate is tied to global markets. If the international economy continues to stumble, Australia will feel the effects in a big way. Are you ready for what's coming? Stay tuned as we explore other major factors contributing to Australia's economic vulnerability. Number 2. Housing crisis and rising debt. Australia's housing crisis is already one of the most pressing issues facing the country, and it's only getting worse. Property prices have soared to eye-watering levels, making home ownership a distant dream for many Australians. But what happens when the bubble finally bursts? Right now, the average Australian household is drowning in debt. According to recent reports, household debt is higher than ever before, with many families relying on massive mortgages just to keep a roof over their heads. This is a huge risk, especially as interest rates rise to combat inflation. For homeowners, even a slight increase in rates can cause mortgage repayments to skyrocket, pushing families to the edge. The issue is further compounded by the lack of affordable housing. Young Australians are finding it almost impossible to buy their first home, and renters are facing steep rent increases. The lack of supply combined with increasing demand continues to push property prices even higher. This means that many Australians are stuck in a cycle of renting or living with family members, unable to break into the housing market. But there's a darker side to this housing crisis. With debt levels so high, if property prices were to suddenly crash or interest rates continue to climb, many homeowners could find themselves in financial ruin. And if the housing market collapses, the effects wouldn't just be limited to property owners, the entire economy would feel the consequences. The knock-on effects could include job losses in construction, real estate, and retail sectors, as well as bank failures due to rising mortgage defaults. As property prices continue to surge and debt levels hit record highs, the question remains, how long can Australia sustain this housing boom before it all comes crashing down? Are you prepared for a potential collapse? Let's take a look at other factors contributing to the economic storm ahead. Number 3. Rising inflation and cost of living. If you've been to the grocery store or filled up your car recently, you've probably noticed something alarming. Prices are skyrocketing. This is due to one of the most significant economic threats Australia is facing right now: rising inflation. And it's not just affecting your wallet, it's impacting the entire economy. Inflation happens when prices for goods and services increase, meaning your money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Right now, basic essentials like food, fuel, and utilities are more expensive than ever, and wages aren't keeping up. According to experts, inflation could continue to rise in the coming years, leading to even higher prices for everyday items. This means that the cost of living is becoming unbearable for many Australians, especially those already living paycheck to paycheck. But the real problem with inflation isn't just the higher costs, it's the economic instability it creates. When prices climb quickly, consumers feel less confident about spending. People start cutting back on non-essential purchases. And when that happens, businesses suffer, which leads to even more job losses. This vicious cycle can cause the economy to slow down, and if it persists, could lead to a full-blown economic recession. One of the key drivers behind rising inflation is global supply chain issues, which make it harder and more expensive to import goods. Additionally, energy prices have been spiking, further increasing the cost of living across the board. For Australians, these rising costs are not only painful, but also a sign of deeper problems within the economy. So, what does this mean for you? If inflation continues to climb, your buying power will continue to shrink, making it harder to maintain your lifestyle. And with interest rates rising to curb inflation, your mortgage or credit card payments could become even harder to manage. The question remains, how long can you sustain this financial pressure? The answer might be clear as we explore more factors contributing to Australia's economic turmoil. Number 4. Unemployment rates and job market instability. Australia's job market is facing major turbulence, and it's a significant reason why the country's economic outlook in 2025 looks so uncertain. Even though the unemployment rate may seem low on paper, job market instability is creeping up, and many Australians are at risk of losing their jobs or facing insecure employment. One of the biggest threats to job security is automation. As industries continue to adopt new technologies, many traditional jobs are being replaced by machines, AI, and robotics. This is especially true in industries like manufacturing, retail, and transportation, where tasks are increasingly handled by automated systems. While technology improves efficiency, it also puts thousands of workers out of a job, leaving them struggling to find stable work. But it's not just automation. Economic downturns and rising costs can also force businesses to downsize. In the wake of financial uncertainty, many companies are looking to reduce their workforce to stay afloat. This means that jobs that were once considered stable, like those in retail, hospitality, and even healthcare, are now more vulnerable than ever. Layoffs and restructures are becoming more common, leaving employees uncertain about their future. Additionally, the rise of casual and gig work is also adding to the instability. While flexible working arrangements can be appealing, they come with a major downside: job insecurity. With fewer people in full-time positions, many Australians are now stuck in a cycle of short-term contracts or part-time roles, often without the benefits of permanent employment like health insurance, paid leave, or retirement savings. So, what does this mean for you? If you're in an industry vulnerable to automation or economic shifts, your job security might be at risk. Now is the time to think about upskilling, diversifying your career options, and staying ahead of the curve in an increasingly unstable job market. The future of employment in Australia is anything but certain, and with job instability on the rise, the question is, how safe is your career? Let's dive into the next pressing issue facing the Australian economy. Number 5. The impact of climate change. Climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's a looming economic crisis that Australia can no longer afford to ignore. The country's exposure to extreme weather events like bushfires, floods, and droughts is putting massive pressure on the economy, and these natural disasters are only getting worse. Australia's economy is heavily reliant on agriculture, which is extremely vulnerable to changing weather patterns. Farmers are already facing reduced crop yields, water shortages, and unpredictable weather, which is driving up food prices and causing supply chain disruptions. From the devastating bushfires that wiped out vast amounts of crops to prolonged droughts that have left many areas in agricultural distress, The effects are far-reaching. The insurance industry is also feeling the heat. Many insurance companies are either increasing premiums or even withdrawing from high-risk areas altogether. For Australians living in regions prone to floods or bushfires, this can leave them financially exposed, with no safety net to fall back on when disaster strikes. This growing risk could result in widespread financial strain, especially for homeowners and businesses in affected areas. And it's not just farmers and homeowners that are feeling the pressure. Entire industries are at risk. Tourism, which brings billions of dollars into the Australian economy, is also affected by natural disasters. Tourist destinations like the Great Barrier Reef or popular coastal areas are suffering due to coral bleaching, rising sea levels, and increasingly severe weather conditions. This means lost revenue for businesses that rely on tourism, and it could lead to widespread job losses. So, what's the bottom line? The cost of climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's already hitting Australia's economy, and it's only going to get worse. Whether you're living in a flood-prone area or depending on agriculture, the financial risks are very real. Are you prepared for the economic fallout of climate change? Stay tuned as we look into more factors contributing to Australia's economic instability. Number 6. Political instability and government spending. Australia's economic stability isn't just at risk from global and environmental factors. The very political landscape in the country is contributing to the growing uncertainty. Over the past few years, there has been political gridlock, frequent changes in leadership, and an inability to pass crucial economic reforms, creating an environment of instability that has far-reaching consequences for the economy. One of the most pressing concerns is the mounting government debt. As the government spends more to support the economy and respond to crises, the national debt continues to climb. To pay for this, the government may have to increase taxes or reduce essential public services. This could directly affect Australians' disposable income, making it even harder for families to make ends meet. The prospect of higher taxes is already creating uncertainty for businesses, with many unsure whether future investments will be taxed heavily or whether economic incentives will disappear. Adding to this political uncertainty, with regular leadership changes and a lack of coherent economic policy, creates an environment where investors feel uneasy. Foreign investors are less likely to invest in a country where the political landscape is constantly shifting, and this could lead to a decrease in foreign direct investment, FDI, which Australia heavily depends on. With the economy increasingly reliant on international capital, the loss of foreign investment could cause the Australian dollar to weaken and make imports more expensive, further driving inflation and economic instability. What does all of this mean for you? If the government fails to manage spending and political uncertainty continues, you might feel the financial strain in the form of higher taxes, reduced public services, and a weaker economy. How will you navigate this ever-changing political and economic landscape? Keep watching as we explore other risks that could deepen Australia's economic crisis. Number 7. Declining consumer confidence. One of the most critical indicators of economic health is consumer confidence, and right now that confidence is on the decline in Australia. As more Australians feel the squeeze of rising costs, job instability, and uncertain political and global conditions, many are becoming increasingly cautious with their spending. This decline in consumer confidence is a major threat to the economy, and here's why. When people don't feel secure about their financial future, they stop spending. Consumer spending is the backbone of the Australian economy. It drives demand for goods and services, which, in turn, supports businesses and creates jobs. But with a growing sense of unease, Australians are tightening their belts. Instead of splurging on non-essential items, they're prioritizing only the essentials, and many are saving whatever they can. This reduction in discretionary spending directly impacts businesses, particularly in sectors like retail, hospitality, and tourism, which rely heavily on people spending their disposable income. But it's not just about how much people are spending, it's about how long this reduced spending lasts. As consumer confidence remains low, businesses may struggle to maintain profits, leading to layoffs and closures. In the worst-case scenario, entire industries could start to crumble under the weight of decreased demand, creating a vicious cycle of economic contraction. The ripple effect doesn't just stop with businesses, it affects everyday life too. With fewer jobs and lower incomes, Australians will find it harder to save for the future or invest in housing. This further dampens the economy and leaves households more vulnerable to financial shocks. So, how can you prepare? If consumer confidence continues to decline, it's critical to have a financial safety net in place, whether through savings or diversifying your income streams. But the bigger question remains, how much longer can the Australian economy survive on reduced spending before the entire system starts to falter? Stay tuned as we uncover more of the forces driving Australia toward a potential collapse. Number 8. Financial market volatility. The financial markets are another crucial area where instability could trigger Australia's economic collapse in 2025. The rise in global and local market volatility could have a massive impact on the economy, affecting everything from superannuation funds to stock portfolios, and even the value of the Australian dollar. Right now, global markets are experiencing extreme fluctuations. The stock market is unpredictable, with sudden crashes and recoveries creating uncertainty for investors. These swings could become even more dramatic in the near future as global economic pressures continue to build, creating an environment ripe for another financial crisis. For everyday Australians, this means that retirement savings and superannuation funds could take a hit. If the markets experience a severe downturn, many people could see their life savings dwindle, threatening long-term financial security. The situation is compounded by the rising interest rates, which make borrowing more expensive. As the cost of loans increases, businesses may pull back on investments or delay expansion plans. This slowdown in business activity could lead to job cuts and economic stagnation. For everyday Australians, this means not only higher mortgage payments but also fewer opportunities for career advancement, especially in industries sensitive to market conditions like real estate, finance, and technology. But it doesn't stop there. The Australian dollar could also be affected by international market fluctuations. As global uncertainty increases, the value of the Australian dollar may decline, making imports more expensive. This would result in higher prices for goods, from food to electronics, further exacerbating the cost of living crisis. So, how should you respond to this financial volatility? It's essential to diversify your investments to protect your wealth and ensure that you aren't overly exposed to market swings. But the real question is, how will you weather the storm of financial volatility that could shake the foundations of Australia's economy? Keep watching as we explore more critical factors that could trigger the collapse. Number 9. Supply chain disruptions. Australia's reliance on global supply chains has always been a cornerstone of its economic success, but today it's also one of the biggest vulnerabilities the country faces. In 2025, these supply chain disruptions could bring Australia's economy to its knees, affecting everything from the availability of goods to the cost of everyday items. The COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent global crises exposed the fragility of supply chains worldwide. Shipping delays, increased transportation costs, and labor shortages have caused havoc, and the impact is still being felt. For Australia, a country heavily reliant on imports, from food to electronics, these disruptions mean that businesses are struggling to get the products they need. As a result, businesses are facing higher costs which are inevitably passed down to consumers in the form of price hikes. In addition to the rise in costs, these disruptions also lead to product shortages. Australian consumers are already feeling the sting as empty shelves become more common in stores and businesses struggle to maintain their inventories. For industries that rely on raw materials and manufactured goods, supply chain issues can lead to production delays and even shutdowns. If manufacturers can't get the parts they need, production stops, and when production stops, so does the economy. Beyond the everyday inconveniences, this chain of disruptions has serious consequences for the job market as well. When businesses can't meet demand or lose profits due to increased costs, they're forced to cut back on labor. This leads to layoffs and reduced work hours, further straining the economy. So, what can you do to prepare? If you rely on consumer goods or imported products, it's wise to stock up on essentials and plan ahead for potential shortages. If you're a business owner, consider alternative suppliers or local sourcing to minimize the impact. But the bigger question remains, how will Australia cope with an economy so dependent on unstable global supply chains? Let's move on to the next issue contributing to the country's economic instability. Number 10. Decrease in foreign investment. Australia has long been an attractive destination for foreign investment, but that could be changing. In 2025, Australia's economic stability could be threatened by a sharp decline in foreign investment, which plays a crucial role in driving the country's growth and prosperity. For years, foreign companies and investors have poured billions into Australia, attracted by the country's natural resources, stable political environment, and strong consumer market. However, recent shifts in global economics and Australia's own political instability are making Australia a less appealing option for international investors. Economic uncertainty, coupled with rising risks like natural disasters, inflation, and an unpredictable political environment, could cause foreign investors to pull out or hold back their capital. This decline in foreign investment could have devastating consequences for Australia's economy. When foreign companies stop investing in local industries, it leads to slower economic growth, fewer job opportunities, and less innovation. With less money flowing into the country, Australians could see a slowdown in infrastructure projects, fewer new businesses, and reduced access to capital for startups and entrepreneurs. It could also lead to a drop in the value of the Australian dollar, making it more expensive to import goods, further driving up prices and inflation. On top of that, a lack of foreign investment could severely impact superannuation funds, pension plans, and retirement savings, which often rely on the growth of global markets. If the Australian economy becomes less attractive to foreign investors, the returns on these funds could diminish, leaving Australians with fewer financial resources for the future. So, how can you prepare for this risk? If you have investments tied to international markets or rely on foreign capital, it may be time to diversify your assets. Consider looking into investments in local businesses or industries less reliant on foreign money. But the more pressing question is, how will Australia manage its economy without the support of foreign investment? As we've seen, this could be the tipping point that pushes Australia into a full-scale economic crisis. As we've uncovered in this video, the challenges Australia faces in 2025 are not just hypothetical, they're real, and they could affect every aspect of your life. The global economic slowdown, housing crisis, inflation, and job market instability are just the tip of the iceberg. Add to that the impact of climate change, political uncertainty, and the threat of supply chain disruptions, and the picture gets even more worrying. It's clear that we are standing at the edge of a potential economic collapse, and the question is, are you ready? No matter where you are or what you do, these challenges will affect you in ways you can't afford to ignore. The information in this video is vital, and it's crucial that we all understand what's coming to better prepare ourselves and our loved ones. If you found this video valuable and eye-opening, I urge you to subscribe to the channel. These types of videos are not easy to make. They require research, deep analysis, and emotional investment to deliver the truth in a way that's accessible and useful. By subscribing, you're not just supporting this channel, you're empowering yourself to stay informed and ahead of the curve during some of the most uncertain times we've faced. So please subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and stay connected. We'll continue bringing you the hard-hitting truths and actionable insights you need to navigate the economic challenges ahead. Together, we can face whatever comes next. Thank you for being here, and take care of yourself. The future may be uncertain, but your preparedness doesn't have to be.